Hello, world. This is America's Supermom, and this is a special edition that I call the Corona Chronicles. During this time, we are suffering from a pandemic that is affecting everyone across the world. We are joined with the rules and regulations of being shelter in place, which means we are limited with the ability to go about our daily business, confined to our homes based on a coronavirus that has been sweeping the entire world. For some people, the effects could be mild. For others, it can be fatal. So we are coming together as a community, as a family during this time of difficulty to share what it is like in our part of the world, how we are affected, and the things that we have in common, what kind of problems that are taking place in our industries and in our relationships and finances, and coming together so that we can plan for a better tomorrow. As this epidemic or pandemic crosses the world, we are waiting for relief. We're waiting for the virus to die off and for us to go back to some state of normalcy, whatever that may be, after things kind of settle down. So, what is that going to look like once the dust settles? How are things going to be different? So, as we go through this process, we're coming together as a world to create ideas, strategies, connect in ways that we have never connected before. So, that is the purpose of the special podcast that I call the Corona Chronicles, so that we can get some insight and have empathy and compassion on one another, create new innovative ideas that can not only improve our life, but our fellow brothers and sisters across the world. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, how are you?
I am good. So glad you could join me. Sorry about the little technology glitches. It's been that way with every platform. It's all got something going on. So
Because there's 100,000 people on them. So,
absolutely, absolutely. So let's start out with you introducing yourself and letting everybody know a little bit about you.
okay, so I am Vismaya Rubin, founder of Living in Gratitude Today, teacher, speaker, best-selling author. But my favorite role is that of a gratitude gangsta. What?
All right. Living in gratitude. Okay, this is great, especially for this time. Because a lot of us are at home kind of stir crazy. This is definitely got us out of our comfort zone, needless to say. So, how did we get to this point, with you being a gratitude coach, or, how did this even start?
So I truly believe my whole life I've been practicing gratitude. And I didn't realize that it was quote unquote gratitude. I was saying I was lucky. My mom is bipolar. So there were times
Mm-hmm.
in my life when things were a little wonky and,
Mm-hmm.
people would say, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was like, "Sorry." And I was little. So it was almost like I didn't want your pity. That was not okay. So I used to say, I'm really lucky. I'm really blessed. Experiences happen to me that don't happen to other people. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember just kind of living in that space. That didn't mean I didn't get upset or frustrated or any of those other things, but I always remembered feeling very lucky. And then later on, I realized
Mm-hmm.
that the luck was really me practicing gratitude from a young age.
This is great. So, this is something that a lot of people can resonate with. This is something they desire. and they have no idea how to start. So when you said you practice gratitude, what does that look like?
So, given the space that we're in these days, I think that the most important part is, first of all, whatever you're feeling right now, allow it to be.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
don't suppress the feelings, don't suppress any of that. So if you're feeling frustrated, feel frustrated. If you're feeling angry,
mhm,
feel angry. But in order to practice gratitude, so when life is great, it's much
mhm,
easier to start because then we can really see the things in our life that bring us joy. We can see the things that make us smile, the things that make us happy. But right now, because we're confined to our homes, because our new normal is very different. What I would tell people is, again, first of all, feel whatever you're feeling. So if it's whatever it is. The second thing is
mhm,
if you're in that space of like just you can't get it together, you can't move. I'm not a doctor, but these are my recommendations. The first thing is do something will bring you joy. Anything, even if it's for 2 seconds.
mhm. Okay.
So turn the music on and dance. Go outside and
Mm,
I live in South Florida, so sitting outside these past few days has been amazing. And
mhm,
and interestingly enough, yesterday I was sitting outside. I could not do any work, and I looked at my friend and I said, "Man, I don't feel like doing anything today." And he's like, "It's
mhm,
okay to relax sometimes. It's okay to do nothing sometimes." So I realized that
mhm.
even I was having a challenging time getting back into work and getting, doing things, and I work from home. And
Right.
right? So what I started to realize is
Mhm,
that yesterday was the most beautiful day and I didn't feel like working.
mhm.
I just wanted to hang out and enjoy the weather. So it
Yeah.
so
We have those days. Look, I tell my kids though, before it would be like, oh, we're not feeling well. But now, after my own struggles with depression, I say, hey, we're having a mental health day, guys. And, everybody here in our household understands what that means. So, we have to have those moments.
yeah, so
Hmm.
we just sat outside yesterday. We had our own like dance party where we live and we had the
Hmm.
music on and we were just chill and we weren't even talking really. We were just kind of
Right.
being.
Yeah.
So it was a really amazing experience. So I tell people if you don't have a gratitude practice, the easiest thing to do is set your alarm to go off every 3 to 4 hours. And when the alarm goes
Mm-hmm.
off, pause and
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself, what are my gratitude wins? So who or what made a difference for me?
Mm-hmm.
What did I do for myself? Did I do something new? Did I do something nice? And then what made me smile or laugh till my sides hurt? But the idea is, if nothing happened in those 3 to 4 hours, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And give yourself a break. And now that we're living in such a different space and we
Mm-hmm.
have all this time to hang out at home and do the things that we say we've always wanted to do, there are things that we have that we can celebrate, but at the same time there's other things holding over people's head, maybe they're not working. And I think that in order to really tap into what you're grateful for, you have to experience
Mm-hmm.
all of it. So I
Yeah.
hope that answered your question.
Yeah. So this is the question that comes up in terms of feeling the feeling and not suppressing it. So, how does one do that in a healthy way? Or, because it's like, okay, I feel the feeling, I'm angry, or, I have fear, but we are feeling that. So, what do we do while we're feeling that?
So very good question, because I know that what
Mm-hmm.
happens sometimes is we can feel the feeling and then allow ourselves to curl into a ball if we wanted to and cry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not definitely not necessarily well, let me say it this way. If you give yourself a time limit. Okay, so for the next
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, I'm going to allow myself to feel really miserable if I need to. I'm going to allow myself
Okay.
to feel whatever's coming up. And then after that, I'm going to find something to do, or I'll have something set to do that I know will bring me back up again.
Okay.
The other thing is that phone a friend and say, listen, for 5 minutes, all I want to do is share with you what's so for me right now. I don't want you to
Mhm.
offer me advice. I don't want an opinion. All I want you to do is hear me, just listen and say
Mhm.
whatever you need to say. And then
Mhm.
afterwards, excuse me, the questions I would ask myself are, is this fear or is this whatever's bothering me right now? Is it something that I can deal with right this minute?
Mhm.
Is it something that I have power over? And if the answer is no, figure out a way to let it go. And when I say figure out a way, so
Mhm.
maybe again, I go back to dancing because I know for me, when I get in that space of, I put on the music and I
Mhm.
move my body. I go for a walk. And with social
Mhm.
distancing, it's a little bit different, but we can still turn the music on in our house and dance. We can still,
Mhm.
stomp our feet if we have to. We can still sit down and write everything out on paper, whatever's in our heads, and get it out. But
Mhm.
one of the steps of really being resilient, really being able to bounce back, is having the ability to ask ourselves questions. And again, one of those questions is this thought helping or hindering me? And if the thought is hindering
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
recognize it, say thank
Mhm.
you, and let it go. And if it comes back up, recognize it, say thank you, and let it go. And then
Mhm.
one of the mantras that I love to use all the time is the universe has my back. The universe takes
Mhm.
care of me. The universe has my back. And substitute
Mhm.
the universe with God, you know, Allah, Jesus, Buddha, whoever you choose to put in there, but the universe has my back. The universe has my back.
Mhm. All right. Now, so you brought up a key question. Looking at the emotion, the feeling, and seeing if it's something you have power over. So, how does one kind of go through this process to determine if it's something they have power over? Because, some people, we're in a space to where we are facing some real truths, things that we might not have even had the time to meditate or reflect on because we have been busy. Now that everything is slowing down and we are confined to our homes and limited on distractions, how does someone determine if it's something they have power over?
Great question. So
Mhm.
when we're in that space of angst or frustration, whatever it may be, ask, so do I have power over the fact that I'm confined to my home? No, you don't,
Mhm.
because that's what we need to do right now. Well, we do
Mhm.
have power over whether I stay home or not. It's not a wise choice
Mhm.
to go out right now, but do I have power over the fact that everybody is being asked to stay home because of the virus? No.
Mhm.
Do I have power over the fact that I may not be going to work right now? No. The answer
Mhm.
is no.
Mhm.
And I know the struggle is real for many people. And
Mhm.
the question I guess I would ask myself is, do I have power right now to do anything different than what is happening?
Mhm.
And if the answer again is no, then you have an opportunity to say, am I going to continue to allow this to rattle my brain, or do I let it go? And I'll give you an example. I remember a few years back, I had set up the show and I was so excited to go, and there were going to be over 100,000 people there. And, I made the trek
Mhm.
from South Florida to another state, and I was super excited. When I got there,
Mhm.
nobody bought my stuff. Nobody. I
Mhm.
think I made $300, and I was out a lot of time. I was out a lot of money. Um, I
Mhm.
was super frustrated because I was like, this is it. It was gonna, be my rent for the next few months. I was set. 100,000 people, absolutely, they're gonna love my
Mhm.
product. It wasn't the right audience. Let's basically.
Mhm.
So I had a call with
Mhm.
my coach, and I'm like, I'm really upset. I'm frustrated. I'm worried about where my finances, how I'm gonna pay the bills, da da da. And she said, well, when is rent due? I said, well, rent's due, let's say May 1st. She says, okay.
Mhm.
It's not May 1st yet, is it? I said, no. She says, May 1st is 3 weeks away. So you're going to spend the next 3 weeks worrying about something that you have no control over right now. Or you can put it on a shelf and say, I'll get back to that on, you know, May 1st or the day before. So what
Mhm.
that did was, even though that thought was still there for a second, it gave me permission to kind
Mhm.
of let it go. And then the second I let it go, I
Mhm.
get to find, I open up the door to find new ways to maybe create income or new ways to evaluate a
Mhm.
situation. So I know that the
Mhm.
struggle is real for many people, and it's not to make light out of it or light of it. But
Mhm.
if you're holding on to those thoughts and they're running,
Mhm.
like the hamster wheel in your mind, what happens is you don't open the space to be creative or look for other options. And
Mhm.
other options maybe right now is going through a drawer or going through an area of your house and posting the things that you don't want anymore up for sale, and that's extra income coming in.
Mhm.
Or maybe you had a side hustle you wanted to try and you just never had the time to do it. So now sitting down, thinking about it, or finding a way to be creative and tap into that space because maybe you've had a dream to do that. Or if none of those things work for you, I go
Mhm.
back again to the exercise or to the movement.
Mhm. Mhm. That is awesome. That is very some good key points because we do have a lot of people that may be in that space and they're like, "Oh, that sounds good," and and but being able to transform their mindset to go over um, what they're experiencing and moving forward to a brighter future.
Right.
So, what are some things that you do in your daily routine? Because gratitude is talked about a lot, and for somebody who doesn't have that, um, what's the word I want to say? Maybe habit of doing it, what would you recommend they start with, so that they can begin to build that up for themselves?
So we talked about this a few seconds ago, but it's really about going back to setting that alarm to go off every 3 to 4 hours and training your
Okay.
brain to look for the good. So the alarm goes off, you ask yourself, what are my gratitude wins? And this is just an idea to go off of. It doesn't, they're not set in stone, but who or
Mhm.
what made a difference for me? What did I do for
Mhm.
myself or somebody else? And I think that that is such a key component. Most people, when they talk about gratitude, we talk about it as something that's being done for us or outside of ourselves. But I
Mhm.
believe that we also have to take a look and pay attention to, what did I do for myself or somebody else? Did
Mm.
I do something new, or did I do something nice today? And here's a perfect opportunity to do something new. We're home, we're stuck at home. So maybe put on a dance video, maybe put on an arts and crafts tutorial or something that you haven't done before that you've always wanted to do.
Mm.
So you have the opportunity to do something new. Or what made me smile or laugh till my sides hurt. So when you start to
Mhm.
focus on those moments that bring you joy, and they're the little moments. They're
Mhm.
those things that we normally would pay attention to for a second, but you can feel it in your body, and you know that it makes you feel happy, or you're giggling, or it's almost like the innocence of a child for me is when I tap into that space of gratitude. And give yourself permission
Mhm.
to do this a few times a day, and each time you may not find something in that moment, but you're going back to it. And
Mhm.
what you're doing is you're telling your brain, you're telling that reticular activating system, listen, finding things that I'm grateful for is important to me. Finding things that I'm grateful for
Mhm.
matters. So now our brain is on the search for those things. It,
That is awesome. Yeah. I love the way that you even bring up setting an alarm, because a lot of people think, oh, I want to have gratitude and just think because they want to have this outcome that they don't have to be proactive and creative.
right.
So I love the idea that you remind us that as we form a new habit of gratitude, it's something that we have to be consistent with until it becomes a habit without us even thinking about it. So, do you still have an alarm now, even after this is something that you practice, or, do you think that people probably always should have
I
one?
don't have an alarm now, but I will tell you, I can tap into that space. I
Mm-hmm.
always see moments of gratitude. I feel it in my body. Like I feel it in my belly sometimes. So if something makes
Mm-hmm.
me laugh, I'm like, up moment of gratitude. If something doesn't happen, sometimes the things that don't happen, I'm grateful for. So that's a moment. It depends
Mm-hmm.
on the situation, but my brain automatically taps into that. I remember being sometimes in some
Mm-hmm.
really dire situations and being able to see these moments of joy. Like about 10 years ago, when everything with the stock market was crashing, my dad lost his house, my stepdad. And I
Mm.
remember, he's in the middle of a foreclosure, about to lose everything, and calling a friend and saying, listen, I know you have a storage unit. How much can you rent it to me for? And he's like, for you? I said, yeah. He goes, I can't charge you for it. It's yours. And feeling that sense of
Mm.
gratitude, or going to the courts and, you know, physically I was ready to vomit at that point, like, because I was just so shook up. And then having the
Mm-hmm.
lady at the courthouse see how wrecked my dad and I were, and she was like, come here, let me see what I can do for you. Or having somebody call the courts
Mm-hmm.
for us. So we were in this dire moment, but I kept tapping into these
Mm-hmm.
spaces of gratitude. You know, we had to pack a house in 3 days, and I had 20 people come out of the woodworks to help us pack. And, all I had to do was ask. And they were like, of course, pack everything up, pack the truck up, drive the truck. So even in those spaces, if you have a consistent practice when times are great, even in the midst
Mm-hmm.
of life altering times, you can still tap it. And I've never
Mm-hmm.
really shared that story with people, especially on like a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's so appropriate right now. And part of
Yes.
me, I always wanted to protect him and not put that out there in the public, but I think it's so important
Mm-hmm.
right now that even in times of tragedy, because that was a tragic moment for us, that was awful, but we were still able to I was still able
Mm-hmm.
to tap into these spaces of gratitude, and remembering, or the kindness of other people. The
Right.
outpour of support from my community was amazing. Amazing. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Now, that is just phenomenal. And, that is so important to kind of receive what it is that you've been giving back. So, for somebody who may be in that state, because the reality is a lot of people's industries are going to be disrupted or are being disrupted as we speak. And the life that they're used to is just flipped upside down. And they may be in a place where they are. Um, at the rock bottom point, so to speak. And how do you comfort them to be in a place to ask for help? What was it that you did? Because you're at that place where you feel like, you don't know what to do. So how do you, if this is something you've never done, in terms of getting support in a way you couldn't even imagine, what would you say to that person right now to start that process?
I that's a great question, and let me think for a second. How would I ask that? I think at the moment, I don't remember the process that I had necessarily went through.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember saying to people, this is the deal. This is what's
Mm-hmm.
so for me right now. And I was mortified. I was mortified. My ego was,
Mm-hmm.
was everything. My ego was in play. How can this happen? How did he let this happen?
Mm-hmm.
I was
Mm-hmm.
angry. I was angry. How did he let this
Mm-hmm.
happen? How did I not see it happening? And I
Mm-hmm.
think I just at some point I had to put my ego aside, and I just had to ask the question, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, again,
Mhm.
our strength lies in our vulnerability. So allowing other people to support you, number one, is a gift for that other person. And
Mhm.
the energy of giving and receiving is the same energy. And it's just as big of a
Mhm.
gift to receive as it is to help.
Mhm.
So if somebody, I guess the thing I would say is ask for what you need. And if you're really successful in business, you ask for the things you need in business. So let's just transfer it now into our
Mhm.
home and,
Mhm.
allow people to make a difference for you.
I love that because, that vulnerability is the thing. This was one of the things I had to struggle with going through my depression because I felt like circumstances based on the role that I played determined my worth. And, now I can look back and say, oh, I just had a bad day. That doesn't mean I'm a bad
Right.
person. It was a bad circumstance. But I used to identify my value and worth with, oh, if there's a bad outcome, that's a reflection of me. And would you say now, looking back, that you can recognize the difference between the circumstance and the person or the feeling or the experience?
Absolutely. I think when we're looking at it as, oh, I am bad, that's total ego. And
Mhm.
I think it's an part of what goes on for me is I remember being a little girl, my mother's always like, "You're such a genius, you're such a genius, you're such a genius," which has helped me in so many ways. But at the same time,
Mhm.
when I fail or when I don't do something perfectly or when I don't do something because I don't think I'll do it well, that's where my ego comes in, and that's
Mhm.
kind of what hinders me sometimes. But now I don't necessarily see it as I'm a failure. I failed at this, or I'm not the best. I'm not the best at this. I'm not the best at everything. But there are certain times where, yeah, you have to remind yourself that it's 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 a circumstance. It's not who you are.
Mm. Mhm. I love that. You brought up a good thing. You said you don't do something because you don't think you'll do it well. This is a place where a lot of people may be at. This is where fear comes in, limiting beliefs. How are you able, even now, we are going to be leaving our comfort zone. If you're a speaker, you're used to being on stage, well, you have to change that and be, on video, or, maybe you have to write instead of speak, or do something different to maintain your presence in the world. So for somebody who is at that place where they're, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do it well, what would you say to them to get started?
Do it anyways. Do just do
Mhm.
it. I mean, you know, it's the perfection paralysis. Actually, perfection is paralysis. If we wait for it to be perfect, we never wait
Mhm.
for it to get done. And it's funny that we're talking about this now because I've been doing a 5-week gratitude course, and I was a teacher for
Mhm.
20 years, and when I would do my PowerPoints, they were on point. Like, I didn't have spelling typos because I was horrified when I saw that. If I tell you,
Mhm.
somebody up above is like looking at me going, Vismaya, you see, it doesn't have to be perfect. I find spelling
Mhm.
typos, or I find create. And if I tell you how many times I go over the PowerPoint, sometimes we just have to go for it, go for the unknown, go for what
Mhm.
makes us uncomfortable, and then we go from there. Because if you have a message and you have something to say to people that can make a difference, why would you not share
Mhm.
that information right now? Why would you not let people, give some people a relief, give them something, give them a little bit of
Mhm.
hope. And if you're waiting for it to be perfect, you'll never get it done, because it will never be perfect. You'll always find some way to make it better, because that's what we do. We grow, we get
Mhm.
better. uh,
Mhm. I love that. Yeah. So, this has been a great discussion. What books could you recommend to everybody? We got a lot of time on our hands. Or, podcasts, or, things that they can begin to consume that have, been transformative in your life.
that we can kind of get started on this
I
journey?
love the book Think and Grow Rich by Marissa Peer. I
Mm-hmm.
love, I'm sorry, Think and Grow Rich by Pam Grout. I love,
Oh, Think and
right,
Grow Rich. That's a
yep,
new one.
Think. And she
Okay.
has a couple of other
Okay.
books. I love her books. I love listening to Brene Brown on YouTube. I
Mm-hmm.
listen to a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stuff on happiness. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite one lately has been for a couple months I was listening to a lot of stuff by Marissa Peer, which is I Am Enough. And I believe that every one of our limited beliefs stems from a belief of
Mm-hmm.
I'm not enough, I don't fit in, and that's kind of what she talks about. And just
Mm-hmm.
as we're going through our day and we're feeling a certain way, the question I would ask myself is if I believed I was enough, would I be feeling this way?
Mm-hmm.
Would I be beating myself up this way? Would I be
Mm-hmm.
acting this way? And the majority of the time the answer is no. So then you kind of, we have all this
Mm-hmm.
time on our hands right now, and feeling however we're feeling again is normal. But then if it looms and it stays there, ask yourself, if I believed I was enough, would I feel like this? No. So what would I
Right.
do? Well, maybe
Mm-hmm.
jump on a podcast and listen to somebody, or check out a YouTube video to boost yourself up. So Marissa Peer
Mm-hmm.
has been
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And then I've been listening to a lot of stuff lately and doing a lot of research on resiliency, on resilience,
Mm-hmm.
bouncing back. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Those are some great tools and everything. So I think we can also glean a lot from those individuals and those different practices. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share. This is very impactful, and gratitude, I believe, is always uh, a blessing because if you're living in gratitude, you don't really have time for fear or um, doubt or things like that. So that's wonderful. What is the best way that someone can get a hold of you?
there are two very simple ways. Number one is go to my website,
Hmm.
livingingratitudetoday.com. And the other
Okay.
one is if you live in the States, you can text the word grateful,
Mm.
GRATEFUL, to the number 64600.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So that is awesome. Well, I just want to thank you again for your time and all your nuggets of wisdom and any last parting words that you want to say to the audience.
Gratitude is like a muscle, and like any other muscle, if you want it to grow, you need to actually go to the gym and pick up the weights. And this weight right here is and
Mm,
our gratitude weight is, stopping that clock every few hours and asking ourselves, what am I grateful for at this moment?
that is awesome. Well, we want to thank you again, and you have a wonderful
It
day.
is my pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
All right, and we'll connect again soon,
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Another great interview. I love the insight on setting a timer for gratitude. This is something that we need to be mindful of, guys. If we are not in a place of having gratitude, it is like a muscle, just like she said, that we have to work out. So that muscle is not strong, it's not disciplined, there's no consistency. So setting alarm is pivotal in order to begin to take steps in the direction where you want to go. And this can apply to anything. Maybe it is positive thinking. It may not be gratitude. It might be that, you want to think positive. You notice there's certain patterns, certain times of the day, or certain things that kind of get you down. So you remind yourself to think positive or say a positive affirmation, all these different things. That is just so key to recognizing that you have to create that space. You have to make it a point to set an alarm so that you can remind yourself and stop that routine that goes on in your head subconsciously. So, great points. I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this interview. If you would like to be a guest, please reach out to me via email info@lachelleatkins.com or connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, um, Instagram, Pinterest, you name it, under America's Supermom or Lachelle Atkins. Want to thank you guys for listening. Have a great day.